sbagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro, gol! Grosso, gol di Grosso, manca un minuto, gol di Grosso.
Hello and welcome to the Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host Sumit Paul, and I'm delighted to say that Milan secured a 2-1 win over Bologna with a brace from Giacomo Bonaventura, sealing Gennaro Gattuso's first win as coach. Looking at the positives from the game, I felt like the switch to a 4-3-3 was definitely worthwhile, especially in the opening 20 minutes or so. I felt like we dominated the game, we looked in control, and importantly, that missing ingredient, we had the breakthrough. And for the opening first 20 minutes, I thought we looked really good. Things kind of slipped away thereafter, especially after the equaliser, but there were certainly positive signs to take away from our start to the game. In terms of negatives, I'd say obviously apart from the sloppy goal that we conceded, there was still an air of panic and a bit of uncertainty about us, especially after we retook the lead in the second half. I think that's something that Gattuso really needs to get rid of. There needs to be a bit more confidence in the team. But I do believe, on the whole, the build-up play was much better. We looked like we hit a bit about us. We had direction in our play. We looked as if we knew what we were doing, trying to build up attacks. So there was definitely an improvement in that aspect, but still from a negative standpoint, I would say that we needed a bit more quality, a bit more composure to be effective on the ball. So definitely many positives and negatives to take away from that. For my manager rating out of 10, I've given Gattuso a 7. I think he finally did what many of us were asking for by switching to a 4-3-3, moving away from that back three, and I believe it did pay dividends. So really pleased to see that from the kickoff. I know we switched back to it later on in the game, but to start with, it was nice to see Gattuso make that change, and I felt it had a positive effect on us. So that alone, say that he can score quite highly with that. Like I said, Milan looked like they had a game plan, and as far as his management went, the changes that he made in the second half to kind of see out the game and get the 3 points, I didn't have any sort of arguments with the changes he made. So all good on that front, and I'm really, really pleased to see Gattuso pick up that first win. And by the looks of his celebrations after the game with the players, I think he certainly enjoyed it. So all good on that front. Player ratings, I'm going to give Gianluigi Donnarumma a 6 to start with. I don't think he could have done much about Verdi's strike. That was brilliant goal from him. So nothing Donnarumma could have done there. But he did produce a really key save in the second half to deny Taider. And ultimately, even though he was pretty much untroubled for the most part in the game, he stepped up when it mattered. And for that reason, I've given him a 6 out of 10. Ignacio Abate gets a 5. I think he got caught out watching the ball in the build-up to the first goal. Even though the play went beyond him in the initial build-up, I felt like he should have done better to get back and offer some sort of support to Musacchio. But he didn't. He was standing there watching, trotting back. So that was a big problem for me. But also just generally, he did his usual thing of just working hard up and down the right flank. Didn't do anything spectacular defensively. Didn't do much going forward. Usual shift from him. So can't give him more than a 5 out of 10. Matteo Musacchio gets a 5 out of 10, but for very different reasons. Like I said, I think maybe potentially he could have been given a bit more support in the lead up to the goal that we conceded. But ultimately, looking at it, he let Destro get past him far too easily. Either get the ball, obviously, that's the ideal scenario. But in that situation, when Destro's getting past him and he's got a free rein to get into the box, you've got to take him down. They were outside the box when Destro got past him. So for me, really, really poor from Musacchio. Didn't think he looked very confident on the ball. Looked vulnerable at other times as well in terms of getting caught out defensively. So really not a good performance from him. So 5 out of 10 for Musacchio. Bonucci gets a 6. I think it was a decent performance from him. Defensively sound, swept up, did everything that he was asked to do. Looked comfortable in a back four, which was good to see. Obviously, many of us have thought the back three was a switch solely for him, really, to kind of make the most of his qualities. But looks okay in the back four, and I think he'll do better with Romagnoli next to him. A little bit wayward of his passing at times, so that's obviously something that he prides himself on. Hopefully he'll improve with that, but nevertheless, steady performance in the heart of the defence, so I've given Bonucci a 6. Also a 6 for Ricardo Rodriguez. I think he was solid. I think he carries out his defensive duties really well, doesn't make a fuss about it, gets forward whenever he can, but ultimately I would like to see more from him when he gets into those positions, when he gets those crosses into the box. I think he needs to be a bit more accurate with that, and that can definitely be an improvement in his game. So no complaints on the whole, 6 out of 10, but yeah, definitely an area for improvement there for Rodriguez. Kessie also gets a 6. I'm really enjoying those driving runs from midfield. That's what we all love to see. The fans love it. Driving force in midfield, continues to make those really good runs forward. Still needs to find that right pass when he gets into those dangerous positions. countless occasions now we've seen him break into the box, look to either square it or take a shot on. And ultimately, I believe that he needs to start racking up more assists and goals when he gets into those positions. So positives, but negatives to go with it. But on the whole, I would say he's putting his mark on games again. He did go missing for a few weeks there, but he's making progress and definitely impressed with him. So 6 out of 10, maybe a little bit harsh, but I was happy with his performance. Ricardo Montolivo gets a 7 out of 10. Now, comes back to the same old point with him for me. He isn't great at much, I don't think, at this stage of his career. But what he is, he's very good at a lot of things. You know, he produced a steady performance in the midfield, stringing things together, made all the simple passes, made it look easy, in fairness, but didn't do anything extraordinary. But again, it was very steady. But the two standout moments, of course, especially the first one, was his 2 brilliant blocks to deny Bologna 2 shots on goal, which probably were going to end up being goals. So, got to give him credit there. Life in the old legs yet. So credit to Montolivo where it's due. I've had criticism in the past of being too harsh on him, but on this occasion, very impressed. 7 out of 10 for him. Man of the match next, Giacomo Bonaventura, 8 out of 10. We've waited a while for this version of Bonaventura to come back. He's had his problems with injuries, he's had his loss of form, he's been switched around positionally, which hasn't helped him, but back in that 4-3-3, on the left-hand side of the midfield trio, got it right. 2 decisive goals, of course, but looked a bit more energetic, looked like he had more ideas when on the ball, and this is the kind of Bonaventura that we need to be the best that we can be. So hopefully it's just the start of a really good run of form. We need to get that consistency from him, so there's still question marks there, but really pleased to see him back on the score sheet and doing what he does best, and let's hope that's just the start of more to come from him. Suso gets a 6. Always like what Suso does in terms of trying to be inventive. He's one of those players that is willing to give something a go, to try and unlock the defence and make something happen. Didn't come off for him on Sunday night. Didn't really impact the game in a positive way. And that inconsistency just continues to be his biggest downfall. We've seen much better from him. We know he's more than capable of it. He can be a really decisive figure for us. But on this occasion, just nothing came off for him. So I've given him a 6. Perhaps that's a little bit generous, but please, as always, leave your comments below and let me know. Nikola Kalinic gets a 5 out of 10. Credit where it's due for the assist for Bonaventura's first goal to start with. And in his defence, there were moments where he did do well linking up play and making runs. So he put himself about a little bit more, looked a bit more lively. So fair play on that front. But too often I felt his first touch and his link-up play let him down. Didn't really do much to kind of get others involved. On the flip side of that, you could argue, yes, he was isolated at times, so it was a very difficult sort of role to take up, especially with a lack of confidence and the fans on his back. So, got to feel sorry for him on one side of things, but ultimately I think 5 out of 10 is a fair reflection of his performance. So, hopefully we see better from him if he's going to continue to play, but if not, then we'll see if Gattuso makes a change moving forward. Fabio Borini gets a 6 out of 10. Number 1, never stops running. Number 2, continues to show his versatility. Started the game off on the left flank, ended as a right wing back before he went off injured. But really, really positive performance from him. Very committed. Grabbed the assist with the delivery for the winning goal. So obviously a massive bonus there. Like we've always said, we know what we expect from him in terms of his energy and his constant running. But if he can pair that with some quality on the ball, then he's proving to be a really, really good signing. So happy with Borini. Maybe deserving of a 6.57 perhaps, but I'm going to sway and go down to a 6 for Borini. Substitutes, Patrick Cutrone. I think we all love this kid, don't we? Came on, put himself about, chased everything down, won his throw-ins, corners, time wasted in the corner by the corner flag late on, constantly geeing up the crowd, getting them on their feet. Really pleased to see his impact off the bench. Again, the only problem with that is he capable of offering that for 90 minutes? If he was to start in place of Kalinic, would he be able to do that for 90 minutes and also pair that with an eye for goal? That's my only reservation, but I think he's shown enough to warrant the faith and trust of Gattuso to be given that opportunity. So hopefully he gets the nod next week, but we'll see. Andre Silva gets a 5. Didn't do much of note, but in his defence, and similarly with Cutrone, it's always going to be difficult for certain players to get up to the speed of the game in such a short space of time. So on that front, can't be too harsh, but I don't think he did as much as Cutrone. He didn't put himself about, he didn't chase hard as Cutrone did. So if you're going to compare the two, then I'd probably say that he was just a notch down, so I've given him a 5 out of 10. Davide Calabria doesn't get a rating, obviously brought on very late to replace Borini after he picked up that knocks, but added a bit more solidity on the right-hand side and looked composed on the ball, so Maybe we'll see more of him depending on how Barini's ankle is faring. But on the whole, positive result. Not always convincing. There were moments where we looked like we were panicking and holding on desperately for a win. Obviously, Benevento result maybe in the back of our minds, but the important thing was we held on, we got the 3 points, Gattuso's off and running, and hopefully this is something that we can build on, gain confidence from, and as we saw in that first half, in the first 20 minutes in particular, we looked as if we had some sort of idea of what we were doing with the ball. So definite positives to take away from that. Let's fingers crossed we get more of that and improvements along the way. Twitter comments and questions. Daniel at Dan Rossoneri. Bonaventura is clearly not a wing-back. How could someone who is paid millions and with the coaching badges not see it? Positives, we play a lot better with the 4-3-3, as expected. Negatives, defending is still terrible. Man of the match for Daniel was Bonaventura. Flop of the match was Musacchio. Can't agree any more with your picks for man of the match or flop of the match. Definitely agree with those two picks. Great point on Bonaventura. Montella obviously wound us up a lot with some of the decisions that he was making, and that was clearly one of them. So good to see Bonaventura in the position, in the role that he knows best and can be effective. So definite positive there. And again, as you mentioned there, Daniel, 4-3-3 switch paid dividends, and hopefully we'll see that used more often moving forward. Stefano Giacomara at Fananono, 4-3-3 really made a difference. Again, great point. More grit, intensity when attacking, even when the quality wasn't always there. That's an excellent point as well, something that I just mentioned earlier. I do feel that there was more about us. We knew what we were doing going forward, but if we compare that with a bit more quality, a bit more composure, then we're definitely heading in the right direction. Man of the match was easy for Stefano. Bonaventura, of course. Flop of the match for him was either Kalinic or Musacchio for that awful defending to concede the goal. On the same wavelength against Stefano, completely agree with that. No arguments there, so we'll see how Musacchio bounces back, or if Romagnoli comes in. Hopefully that is the case, that he comes in next weekend. So again, can't disagree with your man of the match pick either, Bonaventura for sure. Moving on to Samir Mohammed, at Samir Mohammed 72. Negatives for him first up. Musacchio was awful, agreed. Should be dropped for the next game, and like I said, I think we probably will see that. Romagnoli suspended against Bologna, so I'm expecting him to slip back into the back four alongside Bonucci. Obviously got that better balance there with one left footer, one right footer. Hopefully that is a reflection and we can see that the improved defensive performance with those two in the heart of the defence. Ricardo Rodriguez was horrible with his crosses. Again, that's something that I mentioned there in the player ratings. I do feel he gets in great positions, but we've seen him. We have seen better deliveries from him in the past. He has racked up a couple of assists, but definitely needs to be a bit more accurate with those crosses. Kalinic, he's been a negative for a month. Can't disagree with you there either, guys. You're all making great points here. Kalinic, again, like I mentioned, there could be an argument to suggest that he was a bit livelier, and there were glimpses of potential positives, but overall not impressed, and hopefully either Cutrone or Andre Silva gets the nod in the next game. Positives for Samir, Jack was awesome, getting his form back, absolutely, agree with that. Barini with that amazing cross, and he should replace Abate until Conte comes back. Hopefully the ankle knock isn't serious, but like you said there, Abate, nothing impressive about him. He's a veteran, he does what he has to do. Fitness isn't there, and hopefully Barini switches back to that right side and next game. And Montolivo saved us twice by tackling in the box, and Kessie kept the midfield going. Absolutely, with that as well, but Montolivo definitely with those two brilliant blocks. Credit where it's due. Timely interventions for us and protected our lead. And Kessie definitely, like I said, we've seen him kind of disappear for a few weeks. Didn't really look as if he was in top condition, but certainly getting back to those levels now and really impressed with him. Flop of the match, again, Musacchio or Kalinic. Definite reoccurring theme here with man of the match for Samir, Jack or Montolivo as well. So I feel like that's reflected in my player rating. So looks like we were all watching the same game. Couple of changes Samir wants to see in the next game. He wants to see Cutrone come in for Kalinic. He wants to see Barini for Abate and Silva at left wing. Agree with Cutrone for Kalinic. Like I said, hopefully we can see that he can deliver across 90 minutes with that intensity, energy and goals. Hopefully that he can pair that all together. Barini for Abate, no-brainer for me. It's got to be done. The left wing for Silva is an interesting and intriguing one. We'll have to see if it happens, but I can see the argument for it. I just don't know whether he's got the application and the kind of desire to do the dirty work in that role, because he's going to have to track back and do some defensive work. Has he got that in his locker? I don't know. He does look energetic at times. He does track back and he gets stuck in at times, but haven't seen it consistently enough, and he looks like he's prone to a sulk or two now and again. So intriguing one. We'll see if Gattuso goes with it, but certainly an option, and we'll have to wait and see. We've got back-to-back games against Verona coming up in the Coppa Italia and then in the league. So fingers crossed, 2 wins coming up to build on this result. But as I mentioned, Gattuso's reaction after the full-time whistle said it all. Embracing the players, absolutely buzzing for him. Really good to see us bounce back from the recent disappointments, get the first win on the board for him. Players looked more confident, looked happier, more direction to our play, definite improvement in the performance, massive result. And let's hope this is the start of things to come. But until Wednesday, guys, I'll be back for my player ratings for that game. And of course, on the weekend, I shall leave you with happier times. Milan back to winning ways. But until next time, speak to you soon.